We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Back in '63, where the pool was wild and the kids ran free.
All right. Welcome back to Granite State Live here on this beautiful Tuesday evening in the Live Free or Die state. Yes, I know it's the Granite State, but live free or die is the most important part about this state, is the ethos that we carry deep, deep, deep down in my soul. Okay? And on the line with me, we're going to have a jam-packed night of great information. We're going to crack some jokes. We're going to have some fun, but we're going to be serious. We're going to give you the information you need. Granite State Live is your home for news and entertainment. Please go to Ram TV Live, follow, like, subscribe, share, and if you don't like it, shut up. Don't care. All right, on the line with me is K-Sock Kristen in Portland, Oregon, behind enemy lines. Are you surviving? Are bullets flying? Are Antifa taking over any blocks today?
Thankfully, I'm removed out in the suburbs, but I was downtown Portland today. It was looking good. But, everywhere you go, you're going to see a little bit of it. There was a man in the dress wearing a beard and still wearing a mask in front of me in line at the grocery store. So, but you know what? You just kind of get used to it, unfortunately.
That's the part that gets really weird for me. I don't want to say I understand because I really don't, but the concept of trying to transition from being a man into a woman, I guess it makes sense to some degree, but trying to transition into a man wanting to be a woman while still being a man, looking like a man, but dressing like a woman, doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And the dress was like a Little House on the Prairie dress. So that was like a new element for me as well. So,
oh God.
I know, it's so funny though. But that's the thing, when you live in this area, it just becomes like, my favorite thing is political absurdity. I laugh at all of this because you have to, otherwise you're just gonna be angry all the time. So for me, I said in the grocery store, some lady looked at me and laughed, and I was like, God, we need you now, and then she looked back and laughed because she knew what I was talking about. But wild times over here.
Yeah, and I want to be honest, I would say the same thing if I saw a guy decked out in like Trump sweatpants and the Trump gold sneakers and the Trump t-shirt and a MAGA hat with a buffalo hat on the side and a flag. Like, if that was the way that somebody dressed on the right, I'd be like, you need to see a therapist, man. That's not normal.
Yeah, right.
Taking the political ideology to the extreme is just not normal in general.
Right. Yeah. I'm on the same page with you. I generally, it's funny. I grew up where my dad was like, hey, we don't market for people for free. Right. So we generally don't wear logoed shirts in my family. It's just a thing. But so I completely see that piece of it as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've never been a brand whore. I'm not a huge fan of especially wearing another person's name plastered across my chest. It's like it's really weird to have like a massive Tommy Hilfiger logo. Like, I don't mind wearing Tommy Hilfiger shirts, but having a dude's name on my chest sounds really weird. Or like, I'm a big Trump supporter, but I don't talk about Trump more than I talk about my wife or my kids.
Right. What about sports jerseys? Are you going to wear like a sports jersey with another guy's name on your back?
No. So I used to, when I was a teenager, when I was like a huge Pats fan before the kneeling and all that shit, like way back in the day, I used to, like, if I was going to a game, sure. If I was going to be at a Super Bowl party, sure. I'll wear the jersey of the team that I'm rooting for. But as I got older, I was like, I don't know, man. You guys are taking this to a level of obsession. Like, we're in New Hampshire, so the big thing is Tom Brady. It was Tom Brady, Teddy Bruschi, Rodney Harrison, guys like that, where I was like, all right, I get it to some degree, but you guys take it to like it's a part of your personality.
Right.
And that's always been weird to me.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I think Jordan Peterson does a whole thing on it too. And it really hits home. It's like, it's just when you get into the, I like to say voter age instead of like adult age, but when you're at voter age and you're still like obsessed with a certain team, it just makes you wonder what the focus is in life.
Yeah, it's like you're living your inner child on your arm, and it doesn't. I don't think for a lot of people it's as productive as they think it is. Like, I get so much done in my daily life by not being like hyper obsessed with sports and stuff like that. And to be honest, the older I get, the more when I'm not working in politics, I put down my phone and I have really. I get over a lot of this stuff very, very quickly. Yeah, no, I do as well. You have to have those boundaries. It's really important. And that's what I do. I do the political commentary, and I'm constantly posting on social, news hits, and you have to have a balance. But I do think, like I mentioned earlier, being able to laugh at the absurdity and be able to call it out and still have a good time, that helps a lot as well. I think we're in this never-ending, I call it the algorithmic abyss, because you tune into social media and it doesn't matter where you land on the spectrum.
Yeah.
You can tune into social media and create your entire echo chamber where you get 10 to 50 times of whatever you search for and interact with, to the point where it completely warps your view of reality. To when you put down the screen and you put down your Twitter machine and you engage with people, you're starting to engage with people through this filtered chaos in your mind where you're like, you're looking at the world through this hyper-racialized lens or hyper-sexualized lens or hyper-violent, hyper-political lens. And I'm like, the vast majority of us don't think like that. But in the political commentary, pundit, influencer, political activist, I guess you could say, DC Beltways type people, we are hyper ideological, we are hyper political, we are hyper, and we're constantly having to argue and debate with each other, but we're spending so much time debating with each other that I think we forget that the vast majority of people throughout America who don't spend 20 hours a day online aren't actually thinking about these things.
They're not, which is problematic. It's great for them that they can just, I have a lot of friends that have no idea what's happening in current events. Good for you. But I also see that as a concern as well. So, and then that's when we have the detached, the voters that don't pay attention to, what's happening. And when they're happy on a federal level, then they tune out at the state level or the county level. There's a blend of engagement across the board, and that's even just within Republicans as well. So no one's ever going to be at that level like where we are. We're constantly, it's just constantly being consumed.
I think that that's the part that I think you just hit on that really aggravates me, is the hyper focus on the federal stuff and the completely letting the left run roughshod over you at the local level because you're not paying attention to what's happening in your own backyard. And I'm like, your property taxes are high because your school board keeps spending, because you're not reining in the budget at the local level. Your housing crisis is largely driven by local ordinances, a lot of which were instituted during the pandemic to stop production or to protect people before people ramp back up production. A lot of it's macroeconomics and microeconomics. It's protectionism. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But a lot of it can be solved at the local level, then the state level, then the federal level. And I wish more people actually engage in politics like that.
Yeah. And that's what's disappointing. So, and it's funny that you say in your own backyard, because that's one of the lines I use when I go out and do public speaking events. You know, when we're so focused, especially now that we have Trump in office, everyone's so excited and happy. I make sure to tell people, don't kick your feet up on the desk, because you could be bent over a barrel in your own backyard. It happens all the time. You don't pay attention to what's happening in your county because you're so happy that you finally, you know, we got our president in office. Great. But that's only one little piece of it.
Yeah. It's. I think the part that I try to emphasize to people is, if you live perpetually online, you would swear to God we were in the middle of a race war in the United States. You would swear to God that the average black person hates white people and the average white person hates black people, and that there's this common thread of people just getting beat down in public. And I'm like, I'm looking at the crime stats. Crime has dropped consistently over the past 40 years with the spike in the 90s. I was like, but it still continued to drop. What you are finding is that you have an access to more information than you've ever had before. So now shit that you normally would have never had access to, never would have seen before, now you can have access to every incident, racial incident. And I won't even say racial incidents, because just because there is a difference in race between two people does not mean that was the motivating factor between whatever altercation that they had. And I'm like, we used to use that exact same argument against the left when they would take a hyper-racialized stance that, no, just because a cop shot a black guy doesn't mean that the black guy got shot because he was black. He got shot because he had a gun in his hand, or he got shot because he was resisting arrest. It was a good shoot. I'm sorry to tell you, you know, take your cry blanket and go sit in a freaking closet. But that's the reality is people are not hyper racialized, going around shooting people, beating people, stuff like that. The vast majority of altercations are just because you're an asshole.
Right. You know, there's two things that come to mind. All right. So we talk about like the race baiting, but even something as simple as Cindy Sweeney's American Eagle, right? Okay, so they're trying to turn this into Nazi propaganda. She's wearing a Canadian tuxedo, if we want to get technical. Denim on denim, right? Is that what they're really mad at? Maybe. But she's out there, and you know, you've probably seen the commercial. She's she's putting it up, and it says, Cindy Sweeney has good genes, and it's spelt like genetics genes, and then they change it into actual genes, and they're saying blonde haired, blue eyed, and you know, they're turning it into something it's not. And you know, that's just the prime example of what we're living in right now. But I really feel like that's the death rattle of legacy media, when they're so hyper focused on a commercial, the American Eagle commercial, that they're just going into it. They're looking for something that's really not there. And, you know, they keep talking about blonde hair, blue eyes. I think if it was me, brown hair, green eyes, they'd still be angry, right?
They would.
So it's just this, they're looking for something, and, you know, making a mountain out of a molehill, if you will. It's a classic case of that.
It's because they have an entire ecosystem built up around grievance politics. And when you're running out of supply of things to be grieved about, you have to manufacture things. To be completely honest, I'm looking at that commercial. I'm going, Sydney Sweeney has good genes. Look at how fine that woman looks. Like, she starts out the commercial no shirt on under the denim, putting on her pants. I was like, every guy is watching this and going, she's got damn good jeans, all right. And then on top of it, and then the double entendre of switching to jeans, I was like, that's just a good play on words. If they had done the same thing with Beyonce, or done the same with Jennifer Lopez, who's like 57 years old and still looks like Jenny from the block back in the 90s, I would be saying the same thing. I don't...
Exactly.
It's, you know what, there is a group of people who are hyper-racialized, hypersexualized, and stuff like that, who need to keep the problems in front of us, because if we were to stop being aggrieved to everything and start paying attention to what really is happening in the cigar smoke-filled back rooms of DC and shit, we would be abhorred. We would be starting a revolution. And I don't mean a Marxist revolution. I mean just like we would vote everybody out of office if we were not being distracted by these assholes. And
I
ugly
believe it.
assholes, because I haven't seen an attractive woman criticize that ad yet. Not a single one.
I know. It's always the refrigerators that are up there criticizing her. Okay, something else too that came to mind, and that's the Cincinnati police chief, of course, a female. Again,
Mhm.
I get really irritated. My husband's a police officer. I get irritated because if you go pull stats and it shows the very small amount of female officers that are
Yep.
actually working in uniform, and then go compare that to how many get these high ranking positions.
Yep.
I mean, what about the NYPD police commissioner who's never been in law enforcement but was assigned that by Mayor Eric Adams, literally never served in
Yeah.
law enforcement whatsoever, but she's the police commissioner. And that was very apparent yesterday in that news brief following the shooting and then the officer, the NYPD officer dying. But back to the Cincinnati police chief, she is now blaming social media for and bartenders for over serving. So it's a crowd of, allegedly a crowd of Black people beating up two white people, right? And she's mad that people were filming. Only one person actually called 911. I
Yeah.
totally get the frustration there, but she's blaming people for posting it.
Yeah.
You know what I really think it is? I think it's the fact that, once it becomes visible, you can't just sit back and let it go away like
Yeah.
she wanted it to. She has to be accountable. And it just goes to the fact that they're not holding people accountable for crimes in her city.
Yeah. And so I watched that video. And there's an account that posted the entire altercation. Somebody got a video and posted multiple videos from different angles of the same altercation. This was not a racial case. This was a case of drunk people getting in a fight. Two men were having an altercation. Their wives tried to pull them apart. Their girls tried to pull them apart. And like what happens typically when two drunk men get in an altercation and your girls get between them, one of you are going to take a hit. That's why I always tell women, when two men are about to go at it, do not stand between your husband and a punch he's throwing at somebody else. That is a good way to take a right cross to the face. But
True.
so that happened. And of course, we live in a society where nobody can fight one-on-one anymore, so everybody else gets involved.
Yeah.
But this was a mixed company thing. There were a couple Black people that were on the side of the white couple that got beat. And the altercation started between the two men. Then the women tried to separate, and then the altercation started between the women. Ultimately, one of the women on each side hit one of the men on each side. So now you're not just separating the people. Now you're actively in the altercation.
Right.
And then I get pissed because I see the grifters online, the hyper-racialized grifters online on both the right and the left trying to make this either they're all attacking white people. I go, no, that's not how this fight started. It wasn't we're going to beat up Whitey tonight. And you got the left on who are going, oh, these Black people were just defending themselves against these white supremacists. I go, no, it had nothing to do with them being white. You're both stupid and you have zero accolades to your life, which is why you're hyper-racially focused and you're rubbing your last two brain cells together trying to make this work for your own stupid little narratives. This whole thing, and then you had to have the news come out and go with this shooter in New York and go,
Yeah.
looks like a white guy. I was like, that is the blackest looking white dude I have ever seen. You could have said Muslim, would have believed it. You could have said Dominican, would have believed it. You could have said he was biracial or anything else. He is not white. That is he's as white as I am.
You know what's really funny? Even me, as just an independent journalist, or I'm going and posting news bits online. I saw a report from a conservative account, and it said a Middle Eastern man, and I couldn't find any evidence of that, so I didn't post that. Right?
I saw the picture.
CNN,
he looks like he could be Middle Eastern,
maybe, but CNN. Here we have this quote unquote, reputable news outlet, right? I think we all know it's not, but they went ahead and they were totally comfortable saying, appears to be white, right? So it's like they couldn't even ensure it. It's because they wanted it to be a white guy. They wanted it to be a Trump supporter so they could push their narrative further. So it just goes back to trying to find something that really isn't there. But, with that police commissioner, I think that that's something, I could do a 3-hour podcast episode on that, on people that are tapped for positions, especially I'm seeing it, especially women, but they're tapped for these positions that they're not qualified for.
Yeah.
And I saw it in one day with Cincinnati, and then I saw it again with New York City. And it's a real shame that we're seeing that at the top.
Yeah. I've been a long excoriator of progressive white women destroying everything good in society. I swear, the biggest disdain of mine is, I've often said on this podcast, how they'll use the face of a minority to be the face of whatever bullshit they're trying to push today, whether it's trans, non-binary, aliens, holding hands, snorting pixie dust and skipping in front of rainbows, twerking in thongs in front of toddlers. And then they'll put a black face on it, and then we'll be like, God, you damn black people, why are you doing that? And then it becomes a racial thing, and now instead of black people going, this has nothing to do with us. We don't do this shit.
Yeah.
But now we have to defend blackness, because instead of us being able to call out the left for doing that, now we have to defend blackness because now it's become a racial issue, and now we actually have to own the issue. And then I'm sitting here going, none of us actually think like this. The average black man, white man, we work side by side together. The average American works side by side with numerous dozens of people of different races, ethnicities, genders, religion, so on and so forth, just fine on a daily basis. We go to work together, we drink together, we fight together, we live together, we pray together, and we have zero problems. But there's an ecosystem of retards online that keep us hyper focused on trying to tear each other down. And I'm like, I don't care what color you describe the boot on your neck. I don't care how you describe the color of the boot on your neck. You still have the government boot on your neck, and I'd like to remove the government's boot from your neck so you can breathe, because it's a government issue in most cases.
Yeah. No, you bring up so many great points there. And, I had so many things. It's just wild how much race is talked about. It's the race baiting. I am curious what your thoughts are on the WNBA player. They paused a game. This is a few days ago.
The one that lost her wig?
Yeah, I didn't see enough coverage on this, so I just need to bring it up. Okay, but the game was literally paused. Was she screening? I think she's doing a screening, and then the wig. It almost looked like it got pulled off.
Oh yeah,
player, right?
Yeah, it got pulled off.
Might have been intentional, but the fact that the game was paused for that, and then they want equal pay. I'm like, come on, we can't do that.
Well, I'm like, look, the WNBA is a welfare case. It is a charity case. They've never made a single dollar in their entire existence. They can't fill a stadium. Nobody cares. Women don't even watch the WNBA. So I'm like, when you can bring in viewership and make a profit, you can get what the NBA pays. Other than that, we're literally, the NBA is doling out money so you can feel special, so you can say that you're a professional athlete, but you have accomplished nothing. You make $100,000 a year. I know accountants that make more money than you because they produce something that people want. You don't produce anything that people want. When it comes to the wig thing, I'm sitting there going, you know what? If I was in her position in that moment where everybody paused and was like, "Oh," I would have kept dribbling the ball, and I would have dunked on the other end of the court, because I'd have been like, great opportunity to get a highlight reel, friggin' boom. Get that Air Jordan moment, maybe get people to come and sit in the, put butts in the seat. But instead, it's, oh my God, I dropped my dreadlocks. I dropped the rat on my head. Now I got to go back for it. I don't feel sorry for her at all.
Yeah.
I remember when Ricky Williams got his dreads yanked on, when he had his dreads hanging out back in the, was it early 2000s, late 90s? Ricky Williams had dreads hanging out of the back of his helmet playing for the Miami Dolphins, and they yanked on his dreads and he went down. I was like, that shit is dangerous. That shit is dangerous. You could have broke his neck. And but I remember that, and I'm going, you make certain choices in your life, and you gotta rock with those choices. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're spot on that. If we have time, I have one more thing that I thought was hysterical. Do you know this is big in DC, and it's called mermaiding?
What is mermaiding?
So it's basically, you've heard of the furries, right?
Yeah.
So that's like what the middle school and the high schoolers, and some adults, unfortunately, dress as another animal and live their life as an animal. But mermaiding is basically the same thing, but it is huge in the DC metro area. And basically they're dressing as mermaids, and these are voter age people, unfortunately, very progressive people from what I've gathered. And they are taking mermaid lessons, spending thousands of dollars to look like a mermaid with a mermaid costume. And I really feel like this is just like another level of mental illness.
It definitely is. It definitely is. This is the problem when you have a gynocentric society. And I know people can get as pissed as they want at me. The difference between men and women is women as mothers are nurturers and give their children unfettered affirmation, validation, and are nurturing, and they really see us at our core as who we are. And that is a great thing. That is a great thing for society, especially for young men, because we'll likely go our entire lives without ever having that again. But a father's role, a man's role in general, is to turn around their children, face them towards the world, and get them ready for the world they're about to walk into, which means you have to tell your kids no, because some things that they're going to do are self-destructive and bad for them. You're going to have to say, snap your kids back into reality. If my kid wanted to be a freaking velociraptor, I'm not going to affirm him and sew an alligator tail to his ass and let him grow his fingers out like a bag lady and run around school biting people's throats out. This is not Jurassic Park. You're not a dinosaur. You're not, and you're not a toddler, so you don't get to act like that.
Right. No, it is our job as parents, and you make a great point with the man of the house serving a very different role, but it is our job to make sure that our kids don't turn out to be freaks. And you do that by not letting, let them be who they want to be in the house within reason, right? But when you're going in public, you make sure that you are ready for public consumption and you are put together. Do you smell? Did you use deodorant? Did you brush your teeth? Are your clothes wrinkly? Did you comb and style your hair? Are you wearing proper shoes? Like, these are all very basic things, but the more and more, progressive we go, I see these things becoming optional. And that's when your kid becomes, quote unquote, the freak or the loser, because maybe they smelling up the classroom, or, just so many things. Are they clipping their nails? Do they have dirt under their nails? And that shouldn't be optional, but it has become that way. And it's that coddling that's coming from mom and dad.
I 100% agree. We were just criticizing a couple weeks ago kids wearing pajamas to school. But we're at the end of the first segment. Again, this is KSOC here from Behind Enemy Lines in Portland. Where can people follow you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram is my biggest, and that is KSOC Conservative.
All right. Thank you for coming on. I hope to have you back on very, very soon.
My pleasure.
Again, this is Granite State Live. Up next, we are going to have Sharon Bonney, a highly accomplished leader in the adult education, currently a CEO of the Coalition for Adult Basic Education, to come on and talk about the funding that has been withheld but going to be redistributed. We're going to see what's up and, whether this is something we should be concerned about, whether this is effective after this break. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
All right. Welcome back from the break. Up next, we have Sharon Bonney. She's a highly accomplished leader in the adult education and currently serves as CEO of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, the largest U.S. association dedicated to adult literacy in the United States. And this is something, the reason we're talking about this is because this is right on the back of $690 million that's been withheld for review in D.C. regarding adult basic education. How are you doing, ma'am? I want to thank you for coming on the show.
I'm well, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
So what is it that people are missing about this that we should be paying attention to? How important is this? Do people have misconceptions about who these people who are receiving adult education are and how important this is for our society?
Sure. Well, first, maybe I could set the stage a bit and share about who are the folks that come to a local adult education program. On average, they are typically people who are quite impoverished and are looking to change their life through education. It's non-compulsory. They come because they want to have a better family-sustaining job. They want to help their kids learn to read at school, help them with their homework. They want to get into community college. And so what we've seen is that there's this through line with these individuals of grit and understanding that this is how they're going to be able to change their life. So a little bit about our organization. You did mention we're the world's largest adult education association. We have about 100,000 members, 2,300 local programs that serve 3.2 million learners across the nation. But that's really just a very small portion of individuals that actually need the services. So there's about 43 million that do not have the skills commensurate with getting a good job. And so what we do in the local programs is we help them to get their GED. We help them learn to speak the language. We help them learn how to use a computer. We help them to get workforce ready.
And when you say learn to speak the language, I want to preface this for people who aren't paying attention. You're talking about legal immigrants learning English. You're talking about veterans gaining civilian job skills and displaced workers retraining for new careers. These are all people, and single mothers trying to earn their GED so they can take care of their families. So these are all people who happen to slip through the cracks due to one reason or another, but they want to be productive American citizens, and they are American citizens.
100%, yes. And when people understand that once an individual gets their GED, they'll on average be able to get jobs making $10,000 more per year. Right there's that one component. But then also when you start tracking through with them 5 years, 10 years down the pike, because think about our own selves. When we graduated from high school, within would we be able to see it within a year? We could get a job making $10,000 more per year? Probably not. Usually it takes a few years, right, to be able to see after you go to community college or whatnot. And same with these individuals. When you start tracking with them, because we're involved in a longitudinal study, you can see, I mean, they become teachers and, scientists and motivational speakers. A lot of adult learners they become entrepreneurial and open up their own businesses. So it really is this pathway up and out of poverty and into family sustaining jobs and giving back to the economy, helping people off of benefits, actually. So there's that first piece, you're helping them get off of benefits, and now they're actually giving back to the economy because they're buying homes and getting cars and whatnot. So it really is, I think, very misunderstood what adult basic education is.
I want to hit on that because that was something important. You just said that you're helping these people be self-sufficient. You're helping them get off of programs and get off of, and that's something that Republicans used to understand was not a hand out, a hand up. That if you're going to have any program, it needs to be geared towards helping the citizenry get back to a level of self-sufficiency so they are independent from being on government benefits. So that is important. And I'm looking at this legal immigrants, veterans, single moms earning their GED. You're talking about making people self-sufficient, independent thinking adults who are going to end up being critical in America's infrastructure, critical in society, and they're going to end up being highly patriotic and most likely hold the values that we hold towards upholding this legal system that we have, the system of legal immigration, the system of patriotism and serving your country and self-sufficiency.
That's right. And also in a lot of local programs, they have the EL civics class where they're actually helping people who are here legally to get their citizenship as well. So I think that's important to say. There's many immigrants who come here legally. They come the proper way, and the local programs help them as well.
That's fantastic. I love seeing legal immigrants get their citizenship. It's so heartwarming, and nothing really touches my soul like watching a bunch of grown men cry tears of happiness. Right? You become an American citizen your first time. I think up here in New Hampshire, a couple months or at the beginning of the month of July, for Independence Day, we saw like 139 people all swear in to get their citizenship for the first time. And I was like, yeah, welcome to America, baby. Yeah. It was like, congratulations on your first Independence Day as American citizen. Like, I was so happy to see that. It makes a tear come, like it warms the soul to see that type of stuff.
It sure does. It sure does. I think also if you were ever to attend a GED at graduation, actually it's called high school equivalency because there's other testers out there like HiSET and GED, but GED has the most name recognition because it's been around for 100 years, literally. And actually, you probably know the GED was started initially because if an individual hadn't gotten their high school diploma, they couldn't join the military.
Yep.
So this is one of those basic prerequisites. You have to have the high school diploma, still to this day, to join the military, either that or your GED. So, but if you were to go to one of those GED graduations and see these adult learners, many of them who have grown children or children who are, fifth grade, whatever, to see them and how the families come out for them and cry over them and how excited they are for them because they understand this is at the very core going to change the trajectory for the family. Because when you teach that parent and give the parent the skills, that changes the family and that changes the community. So I share a couple of points with you. Did you know that the research shows that a child's literacy level is so connected to its mother's, it's like a 72% connection rate. So if I, as a mom, care about literacy and I make sure that not only am I focusing on literacy myself, but I'm bringing my kids to the library, I'm doing homework with them, I'm checking their report cards. If they get on the honor roll, I'm taking them to Chuck E. Cheese, for example, right? That kind of stuff makes a big difference. And I can tell you from personal experience, my grandmother dropped out of high school when she was 15, and my mother lived in poverty, and they moved around from town to town. My mom got bullied. She barely graduated from high school. So she decided she was going to really focus on literacy in the home. And 3 out of 4 of us were class salutatorians. She made it a priority. She made sure that we went to the library. She focused on our homework. She made sure that we, got on the honor roll or high honor roll in every case. And my grandmother went back and she did get her GED, and she did go to community college when she was 72. So, she kind of closed that loop. But I look at how literacy played such a role for our life growing up. You know, it was really expected. We're going to read and do our homework and that kind of thing. So I just think when we understand that these adults come into the program, again, not for a handout, they're looking really to better themselves. And they know if they don't get that GED, or they don't learn to speak the language, or they don't learn how to use a computer, they're not going to be workforce ready.
So where did this $690 million that's being held up and under review, why is it being held under review? Why is where did this push come from to put it under review? Is it a misunderstanding of the program? Is it just hey, let's take a second look at this? Are we being effective? Is there other ways to spend this money? Are there measures for accountability? What is it that's driving this?
Well, first, I'd like to say the programs that receive this funding are highly accountable. So, in
Yeah.
the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, Title II is adult education. These programs don't get funded if they don't help people get jobs and get into community college. I mean, that is their measurable skills gains they're held against. And so, I just want to mention that of the 91,000 individuals that entered a program to get their GED, over 90,000 did. So, I mean, look at that measurable skill gain right there, right? That's something
Yeah.
you can look at and you can say all these people entered and then they got it. And many of them have multiple jobs and children and a lot of barriers in life. So I think that speaks to individuals, but also the local programming. I
That's
think
a
when you
better
take a step back,
That's a better
Go ahead.
statistic than our public schools.
I know. Yes. And actually, public schools talk to our local programs and say, how do you do it? How do you get them to come back? Well, the reason why is because adults vote with their feet, right? If they
Yeah.
come to a program and they see it's high quality, they're getting what they need, the program's giving them these wraparound services, which often they do. They'll help them maybe with childcare if they need it, or different sorts of things that maybe connect them with Section 8 housing, that kind of thing. When that happens, the learner is going to say, geez, I'm getting what I need here. They're helping me move through quickly. They're helping me to reach my goals. And a lot of these local programs operate on a shoestring budget. They're underfunded as it is already. So I'll share a couple data points with you. On average, these local programs get about $583 per learner per year, compared to $10,000 in elementary ed per learner per year. So incredibly underfunded. But they have these really great measurable skills gains that they can point to. I think the reason why it was placed under review is because all of education was.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw elementary, secondary, you see community colleges, you see universities. I don't think that's a problem. I don't have a problem at all with being held under review because you can see the great results. My concern was that this was money that was appropriated by Congress. It went through a democratic process and it was appropriated by Congress, allocated by Department of Ed. And then the night before it was supposed to be drawn down, so June 30th, it was supposed to be able to be drawn down July 1st, June 30th. We were told at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, oh, this is on hold and under review. Well, what that meant, and I know this from experience because I went around and talked to many programs, is that many of them started having to lay people off, furlough them.
Yep.
Learners weren't being served. There was long waiting lists. And honestly, it was so demoralizing for the field, who already, like I said, is working on a shoestring budget. So it was just on Friday, we received an email saying that the review was finished and that they would be able to draw down funding starting on Monday. So that's the good news, is that after many, many days, and I think it was 21 days, or no, 21 days of really advocating for this, has finally been released. But I can tell you, it's been a hardship for the field that's already so underfunded.
So it's just a case of this funding getting caught in a crossfire while the entirety of the education is being under review. I completely agree with the entire education system being under review, and I agree with all forms of transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy, which you just said, you just lined out for viewers. It is very clear that this organization and that these programs are highly accountable to getting measurable results. As a matter of fact, I wish that I could sit you down with the heads of the teachers unions who, for the viewers, I'm telling you right now, teachers unions, they do not have the students, they're not their first, their first priority. It is the teachers that are their first priority, and the ideology is the first priority. It is not the students. The students are literally, when you're backing teachers against the students and the parents and the local government. That's actually who they're advocating against. But I wish I could sit you down with teachers and with the Department of Education and with people and explain how you're able to come up with these levels of results, because I'm looking at our public education system, and I'm like, I've been to school board meetings. I'm going, how are you talking about different ideologies in the classroom, and your kids are graduating, have no idea who the past 3 presidents were? Like, you're in the middle of an election cycle between 2 of the past 3 presidents, and your kids can't even name them. Like, you don't know the 3 basic branches of government. You don't even know that we're a republic, not a democracy. You can't pick out your own state on a map half the time. The fact that we have so many kids that are graduating school, it feels like half the country right now needs to be going back to school to adult education. Maybe we should be sending the entire Department of Education budget to you guys, and you guys can re-educate the whole damn country.
Well, I'll tell you what, I recently had a conversation with a superintendent in one of the states who oversees all the education in that state. We were talking about this exact issue. And my personal opinion, I have a few on this. One is the cell phones in the classroom is huge. How in the world can a teacher compete with that, right?
Yep.
Secondly, what's taking place in the home life? Are the kids on their phones just constantly, or with, in their rooms, who knows doing what? Or are the parents sitting down and having meals together as a family and talking about family values? I think there's such a breakdown in the home. There's such a breakdown in parents understanding their role, which is to train their children up in the way they should go. We have a very important task. In fact, right before I got on with you, we were having our typical family dinner and then our family devotions, which is what we do every night.
Nice.
So I would love to see that in every family. That's how I grew up. That's what my parents did with us, right? So when we understand as parents the value of parenting and training our children up, that's the first. Secondly, those cell phones, I'm telling you, I didn't have that growing up, thankfully. I didn't have that tsunami of technology to weed my way through. But that's part of it too, right? Children are being raised on anime and like all these other things that it's like, does that really have the values you want your children to have? And then you're right. Then you go into the classroom and it's like, what in the world is being taught in the classroom? I think we saw that during COVID, right? When the parents actually got to see, because the kids were all home and they saw, oh my gosh, my child's being taught this. So I would say also another issue I've seen in the local program level is we have many of these kids who were pushed through during COVID, who had completely checked out of education because they were stuck behind a screen and not able to go to school, especially in the lockdown states. Many of those kids are now adults and they're coming to the local programs, the adult ed programs, for help.
Yeah, I mean, we're still seeing the repercussions of people who lagged behind during COVID, who are going into college, and they're like, damn, my entire senior year was a waste of time. I literally have to get re-educated to everything that I missed. Or my entire junior and senior year, we're seeing and of course, this is the failure of both Every Child Succeeds and No Child Left Behind. You have No Child Left Behind, where you're passing kids on even though they're not ready for the next grade or they're not ready to move on. And then you have Every Child Succeeds, and I'm like, where you're rehashing and you're making it worse. And I'm watching the backlash from this, and I'm going, we have absolutely ruined entire generations, and we're putting kids out into the workforce who aren't ready. They're not ready. We're wondering why the workforce is hiring foreign workers, and it's like, well, one, you either coddled kids to where they're not ready for the workforce, or you completely miseducated them to where they're incompetent. They're functionally incompetent.
So I will share with you, I'm on a committee for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for their Education and Workforce Committee. And I also, I'm on the National Small Business Association's committee as well for workforce and education. And this conversation happens all the time with employers that are saying, people come to our place of work and they come with $100,000 of debt. And they think that because they've invested 4 years into college, they should be, hired out of the gate making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, and they don't have the skills commensurate with that.
Yep.
So that is something where what I love about adult education. We also really encourage them either go to community college, or in our case, like at COABE, the national, what we talk about is, hey, we have partnerships with Google, IBM Skills Build, and eCornell. You can get a certificate and you can get to work right away. You can get a certificate from eCornell that's completely free through COABE, through our partnership with them, that would normally cost you $8,000. But because of our partnership, it's free. And now you have gotten access to Cornell's, state-of-the-art teachers and whatnot, and you'll have a Cornell University stamp right on your certificate. And same with Google. When they take these short-term certificates and they complete them, right away they get hired, and so they come into the local program, completely impoverished typically. They get the training that they need there, and they start a Google certificate. On average, they make $72,000 a year. That's amazing to me to think about, and the local
Wow.
programs help them with that. And we at COE provide support to them as well to help them to complete. What I mean by support is we hired an adult educator teacher who can help the learners as they kind of stumble on things and help them through it. But we're Google's top performing partner because we do that. We provide support to the learners to help them get through the process and get that certificate. But I've encouraged my own kids to do it. Hey, you don't have to go to four-year university.
Hmm.
You don't have to do that. Get a short-term certificate. You'll get to work right away, and employers will love that.
One of the biggest criticisms I had of the university system when I went back to college after getting out of the Marines, because I was one of those people. I got out of the Marine Corps, I lost everything, I lost my identity, I ended up being a homeless veteran, drinking a bottle a day, and I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. I went back to school, I used my GI Bill, and I noticed half the courses that I had to do for college. I was like, I don't need to be in these courses. These courses have nothing to do with my major. They're not helping me. They're literally like, oh, we need you to do these liberal arts courses. I was like, they're not beneficial to me. I'm wasting my time sitting in a classroom with people friggin' 5, 6, 7 years younger than me with zero life experience, zero work experience, and I'm expected to be held to a standard. I got shit to do today. I got to work. I got to go to school. I got a family. I got a wife. I got kids. Like, I could be focusing on so many other things that are so much more productive. The fact that there are these certificate programs out there, I wish the average person was made aware of this, or that we were telling kids in high school or telling veterans as they leave the force that
Right.
these are options that are ahead of you, that you could walk out of here making 5 times what you made on active duty.
Yes. Amazing. First of all, I want to thank you for your service. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving our country. Yes. My brother is a veteran. He's actually a watch commander, but he served his time in the military. And my father also is a veteran as well. So we really appreciate your service.
Thank you.
And yes, you're welcome. And I think it's amazing that you pulled yourself out of homelessness and alcohol addiction, and that you're doing what you're doing now. So just congratulations for your hard work there.
Thank you. Thank you. I've often tried to explain to people that when you're willing to be very seldom in our government are there programs that help give you a hand up and not a handout. And when you want to be self-sufficient, you find more roadblocks than you do people who are willing to help. And we need to be supporting the organizations who are out there trying to give people a hand up, because there's not enough. There's not enough. It feels hopeless when everywhere you look, you see people taking advantage of the system and doing it the wrong way. And if you try to do it the right way, you get told maybe you should have lied like that guy. It worked for that guy. Like I literally got told that multiple times. I was like, so now I get cast aside because I have integrity? Like, that is soul
Not an
crushing.
adult ed program. I know, but not in an adult ed program.
I'm
I'll
so
tell you,
happy to hear that.
yes, I'll tell you that one of the things we're excited about is, as we think about this administration's agenda to help people get to work, adult education does that. It's tied very tightly with Title I, which is workforce. There's a lot of pre-apprenticeship programs as well in adult education. So because there is that connection with workforce, and we know that's a measurable skills gain, we have to have many local programs have partnerships with local employers. So they say, what you need, I'll help train while it's called an integrated education and training program. So they'll say, I'll train them while they're learning how to speak the language or they're getting their GED. It's an accelerated program. When they get out, they can get to work right away in that city or county.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you tell me, are people able to donate to your programs, or is it just funded through the federal government?
Well, so yes, absolutely. We have over 2,300 local programs that they can donate to. They can also donate to COIB if they wanted to. We have a foundation called Educate and Elevate Foundation. That's also a nonprofit, as are we. And what we do is we provide funding for the learners, their families, and the programs that serve them. What do I mean by this? Many times learners are, and like I said, they're struggling with poverty. So if they have a flat tire, for example, that might set them back, and so they're not able to go to school for some
Yeah.
time. Maybe they need help with childcare, maybe all sorts of things. So they have to apply for it, and we interview them, and we make sure that it's really an issue, and then we help them with that. Maybe their children are first-time college attendees while they're going through an adult ed program, so we help them with that. They apply for this; it's a scholarship, and then the local programs often are so underfunded, and so we help them to have just-in-time funding as well to continue projects that they're working on. So they could donate to the foundation if they wanted to as well.
All right, thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. This is fantastic, and I hope everybody reaches out to support. Pay attention. This is Sharon Bonney. She is the CEO of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. Make sure you support and you pay attention. These are organizations. This is an organization that is highly accountable, highly transparent, highly efficient, highly effective. This is exactly what we should see out of all levels of our government. We're going to be taking a quick break, and then we will be back with our next guest to discuss the dreaded Epstein files and Ghislaine Maxwell. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Granite State Live. We're at the top of our next segment. We have on Keith Gross, a legal analyst and former assistant state attorney and prosecutor for the state of Florida, and he served in the Montana National Guard. He is the author of Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. He's here to discuss with us the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, meeting with convicted sex trafficker and Jeffrey Epstein confidant, associate, and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, to discuss the dreaded Epstein files. How are you doing today, sir? Thank you for coming on the show.
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Good to be with you.
So what are we missing about this? We've had a lot of discussions about Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein. Are there files? Are there not files? Who's got the files? Why are we not seeing the files? I know we talked about files for years, but now there's no files. Don't pay attention to anything. And now apparently we didn't want to discuss anything about Ghislaine Maxwell, but we need to interview her, because now she's saying that she has information that we didn't have before. What are we missing? What's the there?
You know, I'm as confused as most people looking at this, because there are a lot of things that just don't add up. This isn't the way prosecutions usually go. Generally speaking, we have a situation where it's a nice flow from start to finish, you know, an investigation, prosecution, etc. In this case, like you mentioned, they said they've got some files, they're going to release them, and then they changed their answer. They said, well, turns out we didn't have what we thought we had. And the strangest thing of all is going back to interview some witness like this, because the only reason they would interview a witness like this is if they needed information and she was the only place to get it. So that's the real question. What information did they want from her that they couldn't get anywhere else?
What I'm wondering is, how is this not the first person that you interview? I mean, just logically, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm a big fan of, you know, you don't have to be conspiratorial. You don't have to get into all the weeds and stuff like that. But there are basic questions. I have never, ever seen a head of a criminal organization who does not have a list of clients, who does not know who their clients are, whose middleman and confidant doesn't also know who the clients are, especially so many convenient coincidences. And there's no such thing as coincidence in things like this. When you have world leaders, heads of organizations, heads of agencies, the most rich and powerful men on the planet frequenting this guy's little perverse paradise, and you're telling me that, especially some of them who have had big question marks over their head for years, and you're telling me that none of them have anything to do with this, and all of a sudden, because these rich, powerful men, none of them had anything to do with this. Apparently, all of these women who are part of this massive sex trafficking ring of Jeffrey Epstein were for his own pleasure, and that his house, which his own employees said was wired for sound and video all over the place, wasn't used for blackmail, and that Ghislaine Maxwell was sex trafficking people for nobody? It just doesn't make sense. This is like, you're pissing on me and calling it rain at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. You know, she was convicted, Maxwell was convicted of a series of crimes that necessarily had to include others. But then they're saying, well, there's no list. Well, how can you convict her if there's no list? You had to prove in court certain specific facts. You can't just say, well, generally she did things wrong. No, you got to say who, what, when, where, with specificity in order to get a conviction. And so you see that happening. You also see Pam Bondi and the DOJ working to unseal the testimony for the grand jury. As most of you know, grand jury testimony is typically secret, but the government in this case has gone to the relatively extraordinary step of asking for it to be unsealed. I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure there is a substantial investigation happening, and I hope they reveal what's really going on to the rest of us soon.
I find myself apoplectic. I find myself incredibly pessimistic. I never expected to see the Jeffrey Epstein files. I just really didn't. And honestly, on the list of things, of 10 things I cared about most throughout this election cycle, it was not in my top 10. To be honest, it probably wouldn't even make the top 20. And to the administration, the Trump administration's ire, and Trump himself, his ire towards this entire topic, is honestly baffling to me, because it's kind of like do you not remember when you stood on stage and you told the country that you were going to release the Epstein files, you're going to release the JFK files, you're going to release the MLK files and the Malcolm X files, and you're going to release all of this transparency and accountability was going to happen. You can't get pissed at us for demanding that you keep your campaign promises. I don't understand. This is like, I promise to love and to hold and to cherish till death do us part. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, of course I'm going to be pissed off about it. You made that promise to me. Now I'm expecting you to hold it. So why are we being gaslighted right now?
I think we elected Donald Trump for a reason. We trust the guy. We know he wants to do the right thing. We know he has the people's back. And I think this is one of those times where we need to have his and give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, because you got to remember, the Democrats had control of these files for years. And I understand why folks on the right are saying, why don't we get to see these files? I feel the same way in a lot of respects. I want to see the files too. The Democrats had the files for years. We don't know what sort of tampering they did before they turned them over. The files that exist now could be a completely made up version.
Yeah.
I know one thing. If there was anything negative in those files about Donald Trump, the Democrats would have released it years ago.
100%. I'm in complete agreement. That's why when the left brings that up, I'm like, you guys what crack are you smoking? Because if you guys had the ability to run Trump up the flagpole, you could have done it. You could have destroyed him. You could have had him locked up for the rest of his life, but you didn't. And that proves to me that he's not in there. However, my only thing is, don't do the thing with the influencers. If you're not sure, if there's no smoking gun, or you haven't investigated to see if there's a smoking gun, don't do the pomp circumstance. Don't play the games. Just investigate. If it turns out the files were corrupted, if they were altered, if they're not there, if they were burned, or Hillary Clinton managed to trip and drill them and bleach them and toss them out a window and send them to a buddy, then you know what? It is what it is. Just be honest with me and tell me, hey, look, we thought there was going to be something there, but we're finding out that it's really not what was there. And it's underwhelming. And yeah, there's people who are culpable, but not the people we thought were culpable. Like, I can understand that. I can handle that. Just give it to me straight, man.
Oh, I agree. And I think most of America feels that way. There's something going on that we don't see. I mean, think about the timeline of what happened. Trump went into office. He'd said, we're going to release these things. He wanted transparency too. Pam Bondi got involved and said, yeah, we're going to release everything. In fact, here's a start. Here's what I have on hand. And then it turned out, she came on, had a press conference and said, well, it turns out the Democrats had a huge storage room full of all these files that they didn't turn over, even though we told them to. Now we've found out, and we have directed them to send all those files to us in a truck. They're on the way. And shortly after that, we heard nothing else. So whatever they got in that truckload of files couldn't have been what they were expecting to receive.
I'm right there with you. Again, this is Keith Gross, author of Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. So I got to ask you, tell me about your book. What inspired you to write it? What is it about? Give us the breakdown, the skinny, the real dirt.
The inspiration really comes from seeing how government has expanded over the years and what impact that's having on the current generation. The folks that are trying to make a living today, start businesses, and grow their worth have a much harder time than generations in the past did.
Yeah.
That's due to a variety of reasons, But in the book, I walk through my story, bringing up myself from a family that didn't have a lot and going on to found multiple national companies, ultimately selling those off. But along the way, I learned a lot of lessons about how government interferes with our freedoms and how the opportunities that make the American dream possible are slipping away. I also believe that it's time for us to push back, restore those freedoms, and that we can do that successfully if we start working towards it quickly.
I 100% agree. I'm in this position. I wrote a book myself, United We Stand and Marines Fight, and my whole point was about the tumultuous dialogue. And I see your book as a book about solutions to getting to where we need to be and solving the issues. My generation is increasingly in this position where you have to work 2 jobs to be able to make ends meet. Nothing is affordable. The cost of living is skyrocketing faster than wages are. And we're watching everything that was once beautiful and amazing about America manage to slip away and be exported overseas, while simultaneously being told that we're not supposed to be pissed off about it. That we're about to be the first generation in history to leave our children a worse country than we received. And
it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, and to a degree, I blame baby boomers a lot for basically, like, you played these games and you let these politicians lie to you for so long that you passed the buck down to Generation X and down to millennials. And now we're on the receiving end of things that should have been fixed decades ago. And we don't know what to do. And the vast majority of millennials and Gen Z are miseducated, so they don't know what to do. We don't know how to fix it.
We've seen a lot of experiments conducted on American society. You know, look at what happened in the 70s. We opened our doors to China.
Yep.
They started offshoring most of the manufacturing jobs in our country. I think these folks that did it back then were well-intentioned, but it's time for us to acknowledge that that experiment has failed. Same thing with the Department of Education at the federal level. I think they were well-intentioned. It sounds like a great idea. The reality is it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge that that experiment failed. The way for us to solve this problem is just to get back to a small constitutional government at the federal level. And fortunately for us, Trump's already getting some of the hard part done, moving things back to the United States by putting tariffs, making a pain point, making it so that it will cost more to manufacture something in China than in the United States, because that's the only way businesses are going to bring those jobs back and create real wage growth for the American middle class. When my grandparents were raising my mom and my aunts, one single person, my grandfather, he didn't have a special job. He just worked at a chemical plant. But one income covered the cost for a family of 4, a house, and a reasonable retirement. That's not possible today, like you pointed out. 2 people working full-time can barely make ends meet. That's bad foreign trade deals. That's bad currency policy. Look at what the Federal Reserve has done to our dollar and its buying power.
Yeah.
You mix all these bad experiments together at the same time, and you've got what we've got right now. And we've got to push back the other way quick.
One of my biggest disdains about DC is the lack of fiscal responsibility. You know, I lament Republicans. I've been a Republican my entire life. I often say I've never been red-pilled. I consider the red-pilled people the people who got a bucket of cold water splashed on them and woke up and were like, God, I've been insane for the past 20 years. I've never been that person. I've been here my entire life. My family are Frederick Douglass Republicans going back to the end of slavery. Never, ever had to switch, never voted Democrat, couldn't even imagine one that I would. However, I lament Republicans who talk a good game about fiscal responsibility and fixing things and then go dollar for dollar spending in D.C., say the right shit on the podium, get back in the cigar smoke-filled rooms, and they're willing to hand their lobbyist buddies everything they frickin' ask for so they can get reelected the next cycle. At what point do you let your balls drop and act like a man and stand up and support the average American citizen? Because at this point, we're watching the America our grandparents, great-grandparents, generations before us fought for, died for, slip away. And I am so pissed at what I'm seeing as I'm watching elderly people whose property taxes are shooting through the roof to the point where they can't afford to live in the house they've lived in for 35 years, where they can't afford groceries, they can't afford heating oil or propane to keep them warm in the winter. We got old people dying in their houses because they have no heat. I'm watching brownouts across California and Arizona and Texas. I'm watching the most insane things that there's no reason for in the land of opportunity. How do we fix this shit at this point? Like we're speeding towards a cliff, and Trump's trying to pull us back from the cliff, but I'm like, we're not pressing the brakes hard enough.
No, Congress is still broken. I'll tell you where the change starts. Look in the mirror. We as American voters elect incumbents over 90% of the time. And then we complain, just like you're saying. And I feel the same way, that they say the right thing when the cameras are on, and then they turn around and vote for trillions in spending we can't afford. Why? To please lobbyists. Why do they keep doing that? Because they don't get fired. That's why. American voters keep voting for incumbents. They take the easy path. They vote for the name they've heard before. They don't dig into policy, and they're not willing to fire people. They need to fire these people routinely. Congress isn't supposed to be a career, but most of the people up there have been up there for several terms. I mean, think about people that we've seen in recent years where, I mean, look at the Senate. You've got McConnell, and you had on the House, Nancy Pelosi. We just finally lost Feinstein. I mean, we've got people up there that can't walk, have been up there for decades.
Can't
and
stay
then we
awake.
wonder why things are broken.
Yeah, we got people who
It's
can't
on
stay
us.
awake
We
in
need to fire
committee.
them.
I completely agree. There's this concept that we're supposed to have a revolution every 2 years. We're supposed to get rid of people every 2 years. You're supposed to come, you're supposed to serve, and you're supposed to go. We have failed our republic. Benjamin Franklin and the founding fathers would be rolling, I guarantee they're rolling in their graves right now, looking at everything that this country is and wondering how the hell we've let it get this bad at this point. Because I ran for office once upon a time, and we in the middle of a discussion about immigration, I was talking policy. Here's the things we could implement. I sat down with Border Patrol, heads of tactical operations, heads of like narcotics and things like that. I was like, here's the things we could do to deal with the fentanyl crisis, and the things to do with the Border Patrol to revamp our entire immigration system, mass deportation, build the wall, literally do everything, to streamline everything, actual solutions. You know what I got? I got a guy goes, well, that all sounds really great, but if you could just call them illegal aliens, then you would get my vote, because we got to call it like it is. And I was like, excuse my French, but are you shitting me right now? And I said it out loud. Everyone else was like, yeah, tell it like it is. I was like, are you shitting me right now? Do I look like a trained organ monkey for you? Do you want me to go to D.C. and pass the policy that you want to see, or do you want me to stand up here and tap dance and play the damn organ and tell you all the shit you want to hear? You know why you get screwed over so damn much? You're the type of guy who believes the stripper when she says she loves you. You're the type of guy you want to send guys to D.C. who tell you all the sweet things. They pour honey in your ear in the sweet hours or the wee hours of the morning. And no. Do the things we elect you to do. Go to D.C., do what you're supposed to do, go home. That's it. I don't need you to say the nice thing. I need you to do the right thing.
But unfortunately, and it's been this way for generations before us too, the crooks that say the nice things are the ones that get elected. I've never understood why it happens this way. And, I think it's going to take more people who are willing to run, who are willing to disrupt the status quo, who are more interested in being effective than being liked. We don't have enough people like that in America. We have too many people that want to kiss rear ends instead of get the job done. And until American voters start to sort that out, I don't think it's going to change. But I am optimistic, because think about the way the right side is skewing for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Right now, 20-year-old males are more right-leaning than 75-year-old males.
Yeah.
The next generation coming up is going to shift our country way, way to the right, and will give us the opportunity to reestablish the constitutional way of governing this country, and hopefully really strip down the size of the federal government. Because one thing is undisputed, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we can't afford this much government.
I 100% agree. I do have a preface because this is one thing that I have always been worried about when we're going after younger voters, specifically young men. I'm glad that young men are skewing towards the right. They're sick of being beat down, lambasted, told that our masculinity is toxic, told that we need to act more like women, and that that's the way we should be engaging with the world, is to deny everything that we biologically are, and to ignore our divine masculinity. But my catch 22 is when they come over here, who are the people on the right that are the examples of divine masculinity that these young men should be following? Because I don't believe it should be people like Fresh and Fit, the Tate brothers, or any shit like that. And at the same time, I'm also sitting going, the concept of social proof is something that is legitimate. When you come over here and you're looking at a divine masculine guy, you should be looking at like an Andrew Huberman, a Jocko Willink. You should be looking at guys who are physically fit. Their mental acuity is high. Their moral background is high. They show a level of social proof that makes you want to live the lives they live to aspire to greatness. They stroke the fires deep down in you. And I don't see the men. I see a lot of people who pontificate, a lot of people who have podcasts, a lot of people who say one thing here or there, but they don't exhibit that divine masculinity that inspires young men. And I'm like, where is that on our side?
Well, I'm hopeful that these young men, as they come up, have a really good BS detector built in, because so many of these really popular influencers, they aren't really selling something that's good for people. They're not even selling the truth half the time. And so I hope that these young men coming up have great BS detectors, that they think for themselves, and that they're not so interested in following someone else, social proof or not, that they just do what's right. They go back to fundamental logic, they think about things the right way, and they make strong decisions. I think that independent mindset has really been forged in recent generations, especially the youngest people. Watch what happens to the generation that came up during all the craziness that we saw during COVID. Yeah. They learned first-person experience that the government's probably lying to you, the experts don't know what they're talking about, and you should not blindly follow authority.
Have you ever considered running for office?
I have. I actually ran for office once before, and I probably will again, because I don't think I'm going to lose the fire for changing the direction this country is going. I think that someone's got to get up there who's more interested in making a change than lining their pockets.
I'm so glad you said that. That's one of the things that it always breaks my heart when I meet people who have the right mindset, who have the right motivations and things, who should be running for office, and they go, no, that's just not my bag. And that breaks my heart, because I'm like, but you would be the good person for the job. And if we have too many people, all it takes is for good men to do nothing, for evil to flourish.
I believe that 100%. I think if you have the opportunity, if you have the ability to jump in and change something, you can't stand on the sideline and watch it go to hell. If you do, it's your fault.
Again, people, this is Keith Gross. He is the author of Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. I got to ask you, where do you think it is? Because I see a lot of politicians who get into it for the right reasons, and they get perverted somewhere along the line. They end up becoming just a part of the club. Where do you think that happens?
I think it's different for different people. For most people, when they get elected, it's a job. It pays nearly $200,000 a year. For a lot of people, that's a lot of money. They spend a lot of money to get there. Some of it's their own money usually, but not most of it. And as soon as they get there, they get this idea that they want to stay. It's comfortable. It's really cool. They've got a lot of opportunities up there. They want to keep the job. And the first thing they get told by leadership in the House, for example, is, well, you better get on the phone and start raising money for your next campaign, because it's only 19 months away at this point.
Yeah.
So they get right back into campaigning. They're focused more on raising money than writing laws. And they're more interested in keeping the job than doing it. And before you know it, that 2-year cycle gets to be really fast, and they just keep hoping and telling themselves that if they just move up the ranks, they can get something done. I think that's most people. And they get lost trying to kiss rear ends, move up the ranks, and raise money. I think there's a few, handful of folks that go up there, and they just get disappointed. And I've always feared that if I actually did get that seat, that's how I might feel. you get into the term and you think, well, no matter how good I do, it's never going to make a difference because all these other guys are going to go and vote the wrong way. And I'm just up here wasting my time yelling into a void. So why not go spend my time with my family instead of, being the few people that vote the right way? And so I think different people, they get disenchanted for different reasons. But by and large, most of it is the desire to be reelected.
Well, I'm so glad we have you on. Again, everybody, this is Keith Gross. He's the author of Dirt Roads to Runaways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. Where can people find your book and support your work, sir?
Well, the book's available anywhere books are sold. It's on barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, and it is an audiobook on Audible. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on X at Keith Gross FL.
All right. Thank you, sir. I am so glad we got to have you on, and I look forward to hopefully having you on in the future and supporting your future run for office.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
All right. Stay in the fight, sir. Again, great segment. We're bringing you the news and the entertainment that you need to have on your Tuesday nights here at Granite State Live, ramtv.com. Make sure to follow, subscribe, send it to your buddies. If you don't like it, shush. All right. We got another guest for you coming up next. See you in a few minutes. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at augustalawncareservices.com/Londonderry. That's augustalawncareservices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Granite State Live. We are in our third segment. We're rounding out the night with a heavy hitter. Oh, it's been such a long night. We've gotten a lot of information. We've gotten you a lot of entertainment, a lot of news, and we are not stopping now. We have time to end the NGO gravy train, exposing nonprofits that profit from aid. We got Scott Walter, the author of Arabella, the dark money network of leftist billionaires secretly transforming America. Scott is the president of Capital Research Center. He served in the George Bush administration as special assistant to the president for domestic policy. He's on to explain to us how we are getting railroaded with backdoor dark money being given to people who are trying to destroy America. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Great to be with you.
So what are we missing? What is happening with this dark money? We saw a lot get exposed by Doge for USAID and how the money is being filtered back into leftist organizations to help fund their campaigns through different NGOs and nonprofit organizations, so on and so forth. What is this? What's happening? And what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, well, what inspired me to write the book was the fact that this Arabella network, and that's the best single word for it. It's a network of nonprofits and little fake pop-up groups and the rest, and they take in billions of dollars every election cycle. They take in far more money than, say, the Democrat National Committee and Republican National Committee combined, many multiples of what they get. And they service billionaires. They exist to benefit the George Soroses and the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates and many more, including a foreign billionaire you've probably never heard of, Hans-Jörg Wyss, who's handed them over $250 million over the years. He's also sunk another $250 million into other left-wing nonprofits. So this is a very big deal. It's the biggest dark money entity, left or right, and the average American's never heard of it. So it deserves a whole book to explain what they're up to, who's giving them the money, and they play in pretty much every issue area there is.
You mentioned a name that I haven't heard before. Who is Hans, and why does he sound like a evil villain out of Die Hard?
He does. Hans-Jörg Wyss, he is a Swiss billionaire. Now, he lives a lot of the year in Wyoming, but he doesn't have citizenship. He doesn't even have a green card, right? He's, kind of, on the rare occasions he's ever talked to the press about that, he kind of sniffs like, I've never felt it necessary, right? But what he has felt necessary is to put hundreds of millions of dollars, over $500 million, into our politics. Now, there are rules, right? If you're a foreigner, you can't just write a check to presidential campaign or a Senate campaign. Now, mind you, actually, he did do that back some years ago, but the statute of limitations has expired, so, he didn't have to worry about that now. We got smarter. So instead of obviously breaking the law by writing checks to this Arabella network, to political candidates, he started writing checks into the nonprofits run by the Arabella group. And that is legal for a foreign billionaire. And in fact, there's no limit on how much money he can give. Now, those nonprofits can then turn around and give money to super PACs and things like that, which the average American would say, wait a minute, can that really be kosher? And the answer is, sadly, yes. For the moment, it is. Now, there are states and folks at the national level who have talked about maybe changing laws so that it's not legal. But for now, your friendly foreign billionaire gets to do that.
See, and this is another, I am a big stickler for transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy. This is I got to give flowers where they're due. I got to give my credit where it's due. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie had a bill that they were sponsoring together to literally stop that incestuous relationship between nonprofit organizations and these super PACs. You know, the tossing around money back and forth between the ending of the lobbyist ability to control politics in DC and who wins and loses elections, where media goes, so on and so forth. That way we can get back down to, normal personal interests and perverse interests being what drives politics rather than some random billionaire who's not even an American citizen. Personally, I think we should be making this guy a public enemy of the United States. Just like I've said for years, we should be doing the same with George Soros. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, one of the points that this guy helps us make, because at Capital Research Center, we study all these guys. George Soros is absolutely as bad as you think, but sadly, there are a lot of George Soroses on the left. I wish he were the only one.
So how did he become the boogeyman?
I've never heard of is another big one.
So how did he become the boogeyman that we focus so much on? But all of these other guys managed to skate under the radar. Why is it nobody's putting them out in the limelight? Why are we not, shining a light on these rats?
Well, if you go to capitalresearch.org or our Wikipedia of the left, influencewatch.org, you can easily find lots and lots of them. I warn you, the first time you're on Influence Watch, you're going to lose 5 hours of your life going down the rabbit holes. Because it's the Wikipedia of the left. You'll see all the interconnections, all the funding streams. So we do our best. And to be fair, Congress has had me testify 3 times in the last 6 weeks, almost all on left-wing nonprofits in different ways, right? So left-wing nonprofits that get your tax dollars, left-wing nonprofits that are doing really wicked stuff, the effort to destroy the entire oil and gas industry in the United States, those sort of things. So there's some effort being put, but, I get it. Or normal people's eyes glaze over when they start hearing about, this group tied to that group, tied to that group. It is a lot to take in.
I'm a political strategist by trade, and I say everything is marketing, because while the vast majority of people are not going to spin down the rabbit hole and do the research and read the policy and everything, people don't get elected for what their policies or their positions are. They get elected for how they speak about what their policies and positions are. And I say the same thing for when we are starting to explain a lot of this. There needs to be that marketing push where we explain in some sort of manner that is going to hit home with the vast majority of the public, to where it's like, oh, this is bad. This is something, like, it's got to be that light bulb that goes off. Why isn't it that Fox News and Newsmax and OANN and all of these other, all the right population of podcasts and so on and so forth haven't gotten behind exposing a lot of this? You have people with millions of followers and people who hang on their every word, but I don't see focusing on a lot of this that really matters.
Well, I totally agree with you. There needs to be a lot more, but I was on Newsweek last week talking about the book, the paperback version, which is revised and expanded, a lot bigger than the hardback. That just came out last week, and I was on Newsmax for that, and been on a fair number of other shows. So, it's growing. There's just like Congress, right? It's the fact that there were all those testimonies in such a short period of time shows you that the Congress critters also are beginning to understand, we need to appreciate what this whole network is. And I will tell you that, I have briefed a number of different folks in the White House, Doge World and elsewhere about these things. And I think there is a growing awareness that we need to understand these things. And if they are doing, of course, anything illegal, which probably some of them are, that needs to be dug into very thoroughly as well.
To be honest, I think we should make exactly what they're doing illegal. But so I'm an equal opportunity excoriator, and I as a Frederick Douglass Republican, I excoriate the right just as much as I do the left. So you got to give me the skinny, you got to give me the dirt. Are there Republicans who are attached to some of this money, some of this dark money, some of these NGOs, so on and so forth? Are there people within our own midst who are keeping this from being something that is regularly a part of the conservative lexicon?
Well, I want to be clear. There's absolutely more dark money on the left than the right, and there's more most any, but frankly, any which way you want to carve the stats, I'm not aware of any type of money, period, that the left doesn't have an advantage, whether you're talking about like the foundations, the advocacy groups, the original meaning of dark money was the 501c4 political nonprofits like NRA and League of Conservation Voters. Any of these stats, the left, this is the thing to remember. The left is the party of the rich.
Yes.
It's important to say that both because it's true and because it makes their heads explode when you say it. But it's absolutely true. So having, on the other hand, what I would say for some of the problems are, for instance, there should have been more clawbacks of some of the environmental slush funds that that under Biden and Chuck Schumer got set up. And there was some clawback and some rescissions in the recent spending and budget bills, but not nearly enough. And John Kennedy himself said, "Hey, I am so sick. There's a senator here who got $700 million for something he wanted in order to get his vote for this bill, and I'm disgusted that we still have people like that." So you are right. There are problems in both parties, absolutely. And the worst thing is the thing that the left understands is, as soon as you get some money going out somewhere, man, you have a really energized constituency. Whoever is getting that money is going to fight fiercely to keep you from chopping it off. Whereas to the average American, that's $20 in my taxes that I have no idea I was paying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somewhere in my taxes, some of that money is going to that stuff, but I don't know that, right? So the guy who's paying $20 at the end of the year on his taxes isn't fiercely screaming at people, I want that money back. Whereas the guy who's getting the $20 from 300 million people, he knows, he cares, he's screaming.
Oh, yeah. This is why you can prevent all of this by not electing ladder climbers. Ladder climbers go to D.C. and they do what ladder climbers do. They get the free ice cream and they try to stay there. And then they'll lie to you to stay there. And then they'll cheat to stay there. And then they'll screw you to stay there. Again, I'm a big stickler for transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy. And I'm looking at this, and I completely agree with you that the left is overwhelmingly, they have spent 100 years building up nonprofit organizations, NGOs, so on and so forth. It can become completely vertically integrated throughout every level of our government in our country. And I don't see Republicans as being actively there to stop it from getting worse. I don't see us pulling back and clawing back enough yet. I still see a hyper focus on DC and not enough focus on our local and state governments, where the exact same stuff is happening on a local scale, where the average citizen could honestly change everything with 60 votes in a school board election or a zoning board election or a town council, or with 1,000 votes you could change the tides of a state rep election. Why are we missing this?
Yeah. Well, you're right. And of course, right, this is part of the agony. So you get, a federal grant will go to a state, and then they'll grant it to a locality, and then the locality will hand it out to their lefty nonprofit pals locally. We actually have a big report that'll be out probably in about a week on the homelessness industrial complex, because, when you see ICE riots or when you see protests for the homeless, what you don't know is actually there's government money going into hard left nonprofits to do ICE riots and homelessness riots. And why? Because they don't want their federal gravy train money to stop, even though it's not coming straight from the feds. It's, coming from the city council that got the money initially from the feds.
I have been saying it for years, ever since the BLM riots back during Ferguson and beyond. There are people with legitimate grievances. Most people throughout the country are, from their perspective, describing the color of the boot on their neck. I don't want to argue with you about the color of the boot on your neck. I want to remove the boot on your neck so you can breathe. And the boot is a government boot. Whether it's a local government boot or a federal government boot, if you live in a red district, it's a red boot. If you live in a blue district, it's a blue boot. It doesn't really matter. The boot's on your neck. And during these riots, you have actual legitimate grievances, and then you have the people who are funded by these NGOs, these nonprofit organizations, paid protesters and agitators who show up. And if you understand mob theory, hey, it only takes one guy to yell, to throw a brick, and all of a sudden the whole city's being burnt down because everyone's emotional. And when everyone's emotional, you're not logical. You're easily manipulated when you're angry. And it sounds like a good thing in the moment, but it's your communities are getting destroyed. How do we stop this? How do we get that out into the average conservative's lexicon, where we understand that this stuff isn't all organic? It's very, very, very manufactured. And we're behind the game because we're not vertically integrated the way the left is.
Well, you're totally right that local conservatives need to be doing a lot more organizing of their local neighbors, their towns. You know, America is supposed to be decentralized, where the power is local, and then little by little things go up, instead of now everybody waits for the top-down money, the top-down leadership. That's not the way America is supposed to work. That's not how New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut, when in the early days of the Republic, that's not how they worked. They had the town meetings and the rest, where that really mattered. And that's absolutely the best model. And we need to be pushing things. We need to push money and power down to the locals. Because as you say about transparency, people can keep a lot better track of what's happening in their town than they're ever going to be able to keep track of 535 Congress critters, right? So the town people need to be more important than the Congress critters, and we've screwed that up. But so I totally agree that folks need to understand that. But you also, what you're doing now is critical too. Exposing, the all of the fake stuff is essentially Wizard of Oz stuff. Like with the Arabella network, I talk about this, right? Mm-hmm. They are totally a Wizard of Oz thing. It sounds like your local neighbors have made this group together, when in fact it's some doofus in DC who created a logo and a website and then bought some Facebook ads for some, New Hampshireites for good government or whatever goofy thing, they have done. And when you expose that, you are like the heroic dog that pulled the curtain back on the guy on the Wizard of Oz. When you see it's just some old guy at a microphone, well, guess what? He's not so powerful anymore. He's only powerful as long as the illusion is there. So what you do by exposing those illusions, that's critical.
I've been, and once again, I've been a long time advocate of this. Going back to the BLM thing, there was a lot of, that movement started off as a local movement of 3 black men trying to hold their universally Marxist Democrat government accountable for using the police department to rack up fines against the citizenry to make up for their unfunded pension liabilities and to fund the government. And there were multiple cities throughout the United States who were being sued and investigated for that exact practice, all Democrat cities, by the way, over and over again. And when they started up BLM, then all of a sudden George Soros funded the 3 lesbians who nationalized the movement, took it nationwide. All of a sudden, the 3 black men disappeared. One's dead, one's in jail, and the other one exposed it and went into hiding, but nobody caught on to the thread. And my comment was, did you listen to their grievance? Those 3 men were talking about what they wanted out of their government was limited government, transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy. And as conservatives, we have the answer to that. But as these organizations come in and they take control and they manufacture these movements, and then you had their website come out. We wanted the most important thing to them is destroying the nuclear family, destroying the patriarchy. We need to take dads out of the home. We need to get down to community parenting. I'm like, yeah, because that's a fantastic idea. I want the butt-naked drag queen twerking in front of my toddler to be the person who has a say in my child's life. How did we get here to where we're missing the thread and missing these opportunities that are right in front of our face? Is there a level of cognitive dissonance on our part where we pay more attention to the shiny objects than we do to the stuff that really matters?
Well, right. That's always a human issue, right? The other thing is just sort of cowardice, or, well, I don't want to cause a problem, or they might not like me. I mean, believe me, I have been saying for years, the big cities for half a century or more have been run by the left, period, right? There are no right wingers running any big cities. Portland, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Detroit, New York, forget it, right? So the left has made these cities the hellholes that they are. And we conservatives have all kinds of ideas. By the way, one of the first I would throw up there is school choice, that could make a powerful difference in the lives of the people suffering under those left-wing regimes. But we are too scared. Very few conservatives or Republicans will ever walk into a big city and say, hey, I want to hear about your problems. Let's talk about your problems. Maybe there's something we could do to help, right? Now there have been a few, like Jack Kemp was famous for that kind of thing, but very, very few conservatives have tried. And the thing that's infuriating is it's absolutely the right thing to do, whether or not it's helpful to anybody's career. It's totally the right moral thing to do, because those people are suffering in those big cities. If you're a poor person in New York or Detroit, my God, you don't have a pretty life. You're suffering. So it's the right thing to do. It's also politically smart. The only thing the left has left are the big cities. If they couldn't turn out 60, 70, 80, 90% of the votes in the big cities, the left would absolutely collapse. And by the way, you wouldn't have to make a huge dent. If you moved that 5%, I mean, I'm not a Republican strategist, but, it's painfully obvious. If I were a Republican strategist and I could move 5 percentage points, out of the left's column in big cities, Senate races, governorships, all this stuff would just collapse for the other side. So it's not like we don't have to have 80, 90% of the big cities voting for us, for the conservative side to succeed. So it's just criminal. It's the right thing to do morally, and it would politically make enormous sense. And by the way, speaking of Soros does this on the other side.
Yes.
Soros is an atheist. Soros hates Israel, hates Jews, hates Christians, but by God, he funds evangelical Christian groups, Catholic Christian groups. Why? Does he think he's going to get 80% of white evangelicals to vote for his people? Of course not. Does he know if he moved it 5 percentage points, it'd be a huge difference politically? Yes, he does. So, I mean, they understand this on that side. I don't understand why the conservative side can't figure out we need to erode their support. And it should not be hard to erode support in places that are hellholes that the other guys, have been in charge of for 50 years.
Oh my God, it sounds like you're being rational and saying something to akin of making America great again should be making America great again for all Americans. And then when you say America first, you mean all Americans first? That is amazing, because Trump is the first president in my lifetime who has had a growth mindset of going after every vote he possibly can. I have said it for a long time now. If you want to beat the left, take away black men. Take away the activism infrastructure and cultural vertical integration throughout the culture in the United States that black people have had for the past 100 years. Our ability to popularize things that would otherwise never get mainstream approval. Take that away from the left, and you have utterly destroyed them, because then they can't institute their policies in their cities. Systemic racism is Marxism. Cross-dressing is progress, and it is highly focused in urban economic centers where there is no political, cultural, or ideological machine to combat it. That's what we need to stop. If you want to beat it, go after these groups, black men, Latino men, young men, take them from the left, bring them over here, and all you have to do, don't condescend to them, just offer them policy, offer them jobs, offer them infrastructure, offer them the ability to build a legacy and a family and have safe communities and to be stewards of their community, stroke their masculinity. God damn, I love having you on, man. It was such a fantastic interview. Please tell me and tell everybody where they can get your book. Again, this is Scott Walter. He is the author of Arabella, The Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America. Where can we find your work? Where can we support you?
Go to capitalresearch.org. That's the think tank where I work. And Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy books, you can buy the Arabella book.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on. I hope to have you on again soon. I love chopping it up with you. We're definitely of a like mind, especially with the growth mindset of morally being obligated to go into these areas that we have left to the left for 100 years. Thank you, everybody. This is the end of today's episode of Granite State Live, and I am so sad that I have to leave you in the desert of bullshit that is waiting on the other side of this podcast. You're going to have to walk through the rest of your week dealing with the lies and dealing with the skid mark of influencers out there, and you know what? It's okay. Because you can always tune back in next week and you can support Ram TV Live. You can go back and check our old episodes. You can follow Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. You can follow Granite State Live. You can go to Shadow Band. You can support Drew Allen. We are always here to give you the news and the entertainment and the perspectives that you need so you can get activated. Make sure to follow Citizens Doge. Get activated in your local community. Get your ass up off your couch and get in the fight. It is time to save America. God bless. Good night.